Article on players, I'd be happy to pass it out to you. It's over there on the table, but I can bring it and pass it out if you'd like to get it.
Should I take it? Okay, all right, good. Sign in and there's an agenda you can take.
There are several different attendance sheets going around, so you can sign any of them. And actually, for people who are delegates or alternates or whatever, there's just a place on the end to check off that you're a delegate or a building chair or something like that. You don't have to sign a separate thing. It's one sheet. And all it, so you can just sign that one sheet if you want to count it here. Anybody who'd like the Morningside Garden players article, I can pass it out if you came in late or you want to pick it up on your way out, that's fine. It's over here. If anybody wants one now, I'd be happy to give you one. Anybody else wants this article? Again, you can get it on the way out.
Hi, good. How are you?
Anybody need an agenda for the evening? Anybody else?
This one? You don't want to sit here?
It's actually more aimed at people who are delegates and stuff. They're only 30 copies of it, or whatever. We have to vote that way.
Delegates, this is delegates, right? Am I correct? Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you very much. All right.
Any delegates didn't get minutes?
Well, again, I sent out the minutes to some people may not have gotten them, they were revised slightly with some changes. I have copies, print copies here for people who would like to take a review of it. Later on, we'll come back and look at it for a moment. And it's for the last meeting in May. And while people are getting their literature, I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight. And we are very blessed to have a great guest tonight who's going to enlighten us all about Morningside Garden players. Actually, what I wanted to do before introducing Suzanne was to just do a couple things about the Morningside Garden players. I don't know how many people know much about it at all, and most people probably know a fair bit because they've lived here for some time, but just to go over a couple of brief things about it. It was founded in 1974 by Dr. Paul Kozelka, is that how you say it? Who is a retired college theater person from, what college? From right here. Teachers College, there you go. Right nearby. So in other words, he lived here, and actually he was the one who helped establish the players in the very beginning. And again, his idea was really very much for seeking out older folks to be part of the players, and other people who lived here to be the first group. And that worked for a number of years. And then in 1981, the company was reorganized by two women, Amy Sheff, is that how you say it? And Lydia Lafleur. And they both were producers, and they kind of broadened the outreach and tried to bring more people into the players, make it more inclusive, and inviting people of all ages to participate in the players. And in 1974, the Players Incorporated as a nonprofit, so it could get even more established. And really, that's all. I just wanted to say a couple things about it, and Suzanne is going to introduce us a little bit. And people, some people may have gone to the opera presentation over here earlier about where people kind of talked about how they, whatever their skill was, how they actually participated in producing an opera. And she's going to talk about, in particular, as a producer, how you go about producing a play for the Morningside Garden Players. So again, it should be a great enlightening meeting for most of us who probably don't know a great deal more than watching performances and enjoying them. So without further ado, thank you very much for coming, and it's all yours.
And please let me know if I'm not loud enough or talking too quickly. So please, you can go up faster. Thank you so much to Skip and MGCA for inviting us all for the players. I do want to say this is the best billing I've ever done. And from now on, I insist on this size font. This is terrific. I saw myself in the elevator. I gasped in recognition of myself. So my name is Susanna Fraser. I have the title of Artistic Director of the Players, but I wanted to say that it is such a collective endeavor, and we have valiant, an actual producer of All My Sons is Bridget Lester, who is here, so we'll talk about that. Cecilia was the wonderful actress, and I saw we have Ellie Levin, and Ellie is on our advisory board and has done a huge amount in the past and currently does. And I wanted to thank all of you supporters of the show and the players in general. Again, as Skip said, we're going to describe the arc of producing or directing or shaping a production. We're calling it soup to nuts, like a meal, what goes through. And I thought we won't do longer than 20 minutes because I thought maybe you'd have questions. If any questions are welcome. So we'll have a little time for that. And the other thing is, Skip will explain, or I'll explain, you'll see how desperate we are for help and aid and how wonderfully fulfilling it all is. So these volunteer sheets will go around. You'd be amazed at the skills you might have that we really, truly need. And lastly, I just wanted to say, so I don't forget, we're having a wonderful event, Works in Progress. John Barrow, playwright in the Gardens, has offered to give a free workshop to these Gardens residents in playwriting. They've worked on scenes, dramatic structure, conflict, relationships, and we picked several scenes that are going to be performed by Morningside Players actors on June 15th. It is Father's Day, but you could bring a dad or a relative or and a reception after, which we always have. And so we'd love you to attend. So there's flyers there. Yes, 4 o'clock, exactly. And the reception about 5:15. It's a short program, very simple, but the scenes are lovely and a broad spectrum of subjects. I think you'll enjoy it. Okay, soup to nuts. So I've tried to make my cards reflect that. I would say the soup is the marinating. So we have our committee, of which are 3 representatives and about 4 or 5 other actors and directors and writers of Morningside are on our advisory committee. We meet to discuss the following season or the next big show coming up, and several suggestions are brought up. We mull these factors. For example, the size of the cast is a huge issue for us. How do we manage this? You know, I had delusions of grandeur. The Kane Mutiny Court Martial, let's say, 400 people. You just can't do it. The ability to find a cast if there's ethnic or age issues, you know, we have to see who we can get. Also, the theme and quality of the play that might be in question, because as a compliment to you all, we are constantly noting what a literate, cultured, savvy, political, and brilliant group this is. So we just can't come up with some kind of fluff. You know, you just are too with it and no real theater. So all of these I've put, sometimes we'll say, have we done too much historical? Do we need a comedy to balance like some heavy duty dramas we've had? So a lot of the discussion. So we come up with, let's say, 4 or 5 finalist plays. The next step is Bridget, who is our treasurer also. What I would call getting the rights. All these plays are usually, if it's been produced before, are under copyright, either Dramatist Play Service or Samuel French Broadway Play Services. The playwrights and their heirs get naturally residual or royalty because this is their intellectual property. We don't just take it, do it, and use it without permission. So Bridget applies for these rights. Often lately, it's sort of a compliment in a way, we're being denied permission. Because they are saying New York City is such a hot cultural area, the tri-state area, that we're not so unknown anymore. We are in Manhattan, in Morningside Heights, and if, let's say, we do a revival, which we wanted to, of master class, they denied it. Because sure enough, on Broadway coming up, 8 months later was a revival of master class. So even though we're not going to siphon that much business from them, they feel we will. So it's not that easy to get the rights, and some selections we were interested in didn't quite pan out. But that's a compliment to the players, I think, that we're getting a higher profile. So getting to the main course, we got the rights to All My Sons by Arthur Miller. In a way, it was sort of a shocker because it's a powerful, wonderful play, but we also knew very challenging. Almost in the realm of Greek tragedy. We started to worry, is this going to jive? But we dove into it. We knew it would be a wonderful challenge. So I wanted to show you now, this is now the nitty-gritty, I would say, is now, I don't even think it's the way we would work. I think any production would work. You start to work backwards. In other words, first thing you do, so it's a finite arc, you book the space. We go on the calendar, we go on MHHC new website, it's really good. We see when the recreation center is available. We don't want to conflict with the other things that have been booked. We don't want to particularly have a holiday weekend, though we were shocked that Memorial Day weekend was very full. So maybe the holiday concept is faulty, but anyway, we work backwards. So let's say we book our 2 weeks of performances. Working back, we want to start rehearsals 5 weeks earlier than that. Working before that, you want to have auditions at least 2 to 3, 4 weeks before that, so that actors who will be involved in it know they're going to be involved in it, can have the script. I mean, I really believe in this marinating word that script, I think, as an artist, you got to settle into it like a bathtub. You don't get it the night before. I don't think. I start rehearsing it that morning. They do actually in television, but we have the luxury of having I think, a deeper experience. So we want to get the actors who might do it to have a little lead time to sit with the script, not feel the pressure that they're meeting new people tomorrow. And the final thing, even before that, is what I would call pre-production. And as a director of plays, that is, I think, one of the most crucial elements of all. And that if your pre-production isn't solid, just like the foundation of a building, you're going to have trouble down the road. And what I would call pre-production, you meet with what we call the creative team. Sets, lights, costume, producer, any team members that are going to shape this play. And you discuss what we're going to need. And we are incredibly lucky that we have Morningside Garden's own hero, Mike Mahaney, as our set design and scenic supervisor. So he's fantastic and always comes through. And I was really blown away for All My Sons. He created this suburban, hometown America, generic, sweet generis. But what was interesting, that's why you need these discussions, because what we've talked about so much, I read a lot of essays, and also Miller's words, He wanted to do a bait and switch on the audience. He wanted them to come into a sylvan setting of suburbia, charming, World War II is over, everything is great, and start to slip in the conflict, the secrets, the scandal, the cover-ups, as the play wears on, so the audience would not be tipped off, and they could relate that this could happen to you or me or any of us. So Mike was very good about that. He said, now we're having aluminum siding, now we're having a screen door. I never expected all this stuff. Now we'll have plants, now we'll have an arbor. It was so great. He's so wonderful. The other element, and his son Patrick is so wonderful, is lights and sound, which I think is crucial. So we would work to create what we thought was right. I found music that I think subliminally helps the audience feel something without being conscious. Music's playing now. You gotta slide it into their subconscious, I think, when you have background music. Or not if it's a different kind of play, but this kind of play, psychological play. Then we, of course, have intense conferences about the costumes. This is a huge Megillah, and Bridget did a yeoman job, and Cecilia, everybody chipped in. In this play, since it was 40s, we have a stock of some costumes. To save money, which is our constant battle cry, we knew we could cover some things by begging and borrowing, but still we had to go out and buy certain shoes, borrow the actors' suits, get some hats. But we had to go to, does anyone know the costume collection, TDF's nonprofit center for nonprofit theater? We go out there and we got the rest of the costumes. So it's $60, again, soup to nuts per actor. But this starts to add up, and we'll talk about the cost, this stuff. But we had to for a few things. We just had to. So we have to see what's going to be borrowed and rented, and we started to make a budget based on this. You know, what can Mike come up with? You know, he does renovate apartments, so often people are throwing out wood and stuff, so he'll scrounge, he'll find it, he'll find lights that are broken, he fixes them, suddenly we have a light on stage, so it's really great. For example, of a rental, I don't know if people saw The Devil's Disciple, but there was really no way around it if we were going to do it in period than not to get the British soldier costumes. So that was $60 a pop for 6 people. Plus other colonial capes, assorted three-corner hats, you know, so that was a huge budget thing. You could do Devil's Disciple in modern dress, but it seemed to me so in cahoots with the period. I just felt it was better to have it, and for fun for everybody to see a real colonial set. So now the director and the producer and our committee even focus on the cast. How are we going to cast this? And this is an interesting subject. I'm so glad you're all here. You know, when you say who is right for these roles, who is available, it's not only the age and the type, but sometimes people have an essence, and there's no way around it as a human being. As an actor, you've seen someone walk in the door and already you're worried about it. Or you've seen the person has an edge, I can smell it from here. Well, those little qualities are actually quite handy on the stage. But you have to pick the right person. You don't want the sympathetic heroine Anne to have a lethal edge that nobody likes her, and then it doesn't root for them to get together. You know, there has to be subtle psychological things. So we talk about that a lot. And here's the part, you all come in. We very much want to use Morningside Gardens actors, and we do have a lot. We have several in the gardens. What I think goes slightly awry naturally is the time commitment and scheduling commitment. Several times we've asked actors who are in the gardens, and they have teaching jobs, they have seminars at night, they have a family, and they just say, I'd love to, but I can't commit that much time and effort. It is a lot of time and effort. But we're always wanting to use Morningside people, and we do have auditions posted each year. For those roles that we can't fit, and often the roles that we can't fit are this range of 20 to 40. It's not that we don't have people in the garden 20 to 40, but we've noticed they seem insanely busy with their lives, and they just say, I just can't do it. I'd love to, but I can't do it. So often we have to go for outside actors. So we listed in something called Actors Access or Playbill.com that actors around town could see, and we're getting a better profile. So people say, hey, that Morningside Players that did such a good, The Old Settler, they're looking for such and such characters. They email us their resume. If they seem right, we give them appointments, and then we have auditions. Auditions, and please tell me if this is redundant stuff that everybody knows. You know audition. Anyway, you usually read from the sides of the play. If it's a general theater experience, you might have people do monologues, but when you're casting a play, it's usually better to cut to the chase. Are they right for this material? They could be wonderful. We had people who came in, remember that, a few guys, they were fabulous in an Al Pacino, New York Law and Order city urban way, but they wouldn't be believable in this suburban 1946 bucolic city. They just seem too urban. And something against them, but you worry, can they can they change their accent, their demeanor in time for this play? You tend to just go to the next actor who comes in with that. It's not, so that's why casting is so subtle. It's not always based on acting skill. So we do actors access. We also call in actors we've worked with before. I hope does anyone recognize Stephen Bradbury as Joe Keller, was also General Burgoyne, and he was also Mr. Farnsworth from Cecilia. So we know it's an actor, and another huge factor is reliability and what's the word? I don't have to say integrity. That they commit to it and will show up. Because the worst thing we get is actors and then 2 weeks said, oh, actually I can't do it, or I have a wedding I prefer to go to that weekend, or it's like a nightmare. So you really need people who are on board and willing to sacrifice a chunk of time. So then we have callbacks, and on All My Sons, we were pretty scrupulous. We actually had a third callback. We said, not quite right. Would that one go with this? Sometimes heights are an issue. Or age, if Anne seemed older than, there's a lot of issues. So we had 3 callbacks, and we finally offer roles. Now, sometimes you offer roles, and the actors say, on second thought, I don't want to do it. Or I can't do it. It's too scary to me. Or I got something else. So you usually have an A, B, and C list, but I'd have to say, in All My Sons, we got every actor we asked. And I think one reason it's such a famous play, and actors do it in acting class, and they felt a challenge, like people want to do Hamlet, or they want to get it under their belts, gripping Arthur Miller's script. So we had very good luck with, now, about casting, this is an interesting concept. I know you've probably heard colorblind casting, which the players do hardly believe in. Sometimes it doesn't quite work for the playwright's intention. For example, for The Heiress, it was back enough in the past, and it was not really a family drama of power and I would say psychological abuse. So we mixed and matched in the old group, and it worked fine. But let's say we did Raisin in the Sun. Now, Lorraine Hansberry was writing about that specific black family in segregated Chicago who tried to get a house, and it would really be, subverting her writing to suddenly try to cast it with, see, sometimes you have to honor it. It's just, that's all there is to it. So that's that. So now we're getting to what I call the meat of it, right? We've done the marinating, the soup. So we have our cast, the first read-through. At the first read-through, traditionally in all play rehearsals, you have ideally a mock-up of the set. We don't have that much skill, but we have a picture, a drawing of it. Pictures of the costumes or sketches. We have take measurements of the actors. They fill out union paperwork, because some are members of Actors Equity, the Actors Union, which specifies when are their breaks and how long we can rehearse and things like that. And here I would have to say about the director, because I studied this. But the director's task at this rehearsal, and then they should shut up pretty much, is to try to articulate the overall theme or arc of the play. I mean, actors are wonderful. They don't need much. It's like guiding the ship. They can do it themselves pretty much. You just say, we're going there. We're going to Gibraltar. What Miller wrote is a play, I think, about a responsibility to our fellow man, not just this tribal thing of our people, our town, which is very common. I'm not going to go off on a whole side trip, but like this whole India, we slaughtered that daughter because she brought disgrace on our tribe, or this small, tiny world. And in a way, Joe Keller had that philosophy in that I saved the business for my son. That's all that counts. And then the son was horrified. There's another world out there, and our human ethical response to it. So I think that was Miller's theme. And he thought it was his theme. That's what he said his theme was. So I would say that freely. And we work on that, and hopefully do a few rules on how to work as actors. Don't direct each other. Don't criticize each other. It doesn't mean you can't make suggestions. But people shut down. The worst thing you can say to an actor or in front of people, are you going to do it that way? And the actor shuts down. Then they either resent the other actor, or B, they defiantly do it that way because now they're angry, or they're just so insecure. So you can try to create an open atmosphere that you can try things, but you siphon it through the director in a supportive way, I hope. So rehearsals generally run 5 weeks. By then, this is where this volunteering part, we have a stage manager on board, which is crucial and ideal. They set up the space, they set up the props, so they help you. They call the actors, they send the call the night before, what scenes we were working on. It's a huge amount of what we call left brain work. And whenever I'm left to do it, I make huge mistakes because I'm so bad at it. But there are people who are willing to be a stage manager who don't want to act or perform, and we love any of you to join in. So they are at your side directing. So we do about 4 nights a week and 2 weekend afternoons. So I'd say it's a 6-day-a-week rehearsal, and this is when it starts to be a lot for people who don't want to do this full time. We break, after the first week, we break into intimate scenes. In early rehearsals, it's better if the actors don't have the whole cast on their tail. You know, they're just reading and working on stuff, and what does it mean, and how long have we been married, and do I know this secret? And often a good Kazan technique is don't even let the other character know the secret of the other one. And they secretly know because they've read the play. But you know, the sledgehammer, it kicks a nice sense of mystery and tension in the play. After 2 weeks, we finally, and once a week I try to have the whole cast come in. So we don't lose the thread. It's not just my idea, this is advice to directors, as we always say to do this. You don't lose the thread, so once a week you have the whole cast run through it, no matter how staggeringly off it is and people have scripts. Finally, after 2 weeks, the stage manager gives a cutoff on the script. You gotta put the script down, right? It's called off book. And some actors resist this more than others. Some get very frightened and it's a crutch, but they're happier if they are forced to put the script down. So then we start doing runs, and this is when notes come in. You let the actor run through all the actors run through the whole play, and you give notes at the end. Now these notes, I just wanted to tell you a bit about notes. They are the entire gamut. They're about stakes, about pacing. They're also, they're often very deep, like you have no inner life, you're spilling your guts out to him there, and I'm not seeing it, or I think this secret is too shocking, you have to take it in longer. The audience is not gonna get that this is new news to you. It was too casual. That's one example of one kind of note you give to an actor. Sometimes it gets very technical, like I can't understand the word penitentiary, and we need to hear that word. Or it gets really small, like you gotta get rid of the cowlick on the top of that guy's head. Where's the gel? You know, and there's too much pink on the stage. Or you can see someone's foot before they enter. They gotta get back. But the reason I'm saying all this is I often think of Agnes de Mille's famous phrase, but she probably heard it from someone else, maybe Martha Graham. But the amount of attention to detail separates the amateur from the professional and the professional from the artist. So when you see something really good, like usually Broadway or Roundabout, or the amount of detail, and when there's a sloppy detail, it's a lessening of, and the audience is taken out of belief. Here's an example. My colleagues did Winter's Tale, and the baby, the foundling baby, but it was done realistically pretty much, but the foundling baby was supposed to have a basket. They couldn't find a basket, so they threw it in a post office plastic bin, the baby. And the others were like, but the trouble is you could do that if it had been set up this is an absurd world where there'll be things like this. You can do an absurdist take on, but they didn't set that up. They set up a realistic play, then 2/3, and it was a sloppiness and lack of attention to detail. So we did try very hard with All My Sons in all plays. We might have failed sometimes, but the sounds are right. The time it takes to walk to the car and the car to start. The audience won't know, but they sense it's wrong when it's wrong. They just start to lose belief, you know, or that Anne would have compact and lipstick in the world of the 1940s, you know. So we tried to do details always. Getting there, if people feel I'm going too fast or too detailed. While all this is happening, these rehearsals, on the other front, our ferocious committee is doing a huge push on publicity, and this is what we love to talk to you about. We definitely always need graphic artists. We've had wonderful volunteers with Newsmore. So she made a design with a postcard. We get those made up. We make a cast. We put them in you probably have this every floor, you see it, right? You see it in the glass boxes. You know what makes my heart sink? You know, I'm announcing it my exercise pass, and people go, I've seen nothing about that show. You just want to die because you're the person who went to every elevator, you know, and how can you not see it? But I do agree that we're so flooded with this information. You know, it's overkill. But we do the best we can. We also put it on our website. So that's and we're happy to say extended on this one by your great support. So that's a huge issue that we do. We also, Cecilia puts it on Columbia's website of events. We put it on Club Free Time. We've now gotten on theater TDF and sell tickets on that. And we've even added brown paper tickets. Now the reason we did that, some people said, but Morningside Players, you always just went at the door. You could still do that, but the trouble is as we're getting much more popular, a lot of people said to me, you know, I'm having my family come in, and I want to take them to the Mother's Day performance of All My Sons, and you're telling me us 8 people should wing it? I really feel more secure if I could buy the tickets in advance and order the tickets, and someone came from Staten Island, they said, I'm coming all this way and I may not get in. So we got Bridget to help set up the brown paper tickets that you can get tickets in advance. You can also still come to the door, but it's less, guaranteed. Okay, and again, we do have a suggested price. If you can only pay $2, $1, please come in anyway. The whole point is it's suggested. And with all expenses, we just about break even with the ticket price. We lost our shirt a bit on the Old Settler. I don't know, did many people see the Old Settler? Wonderful play, yeah. It was wonderful, but it wasn't known. And All My Sons was a name everybody had heard of. So that's a factor when we take a risk on a less known play. Same thing on Broadway. Why do they keep doing the same old stuff? Because new plays are dicey with people. They don't want to risk it. But it was a wonderful play. Next, getting back to rehearsal. While all that's going on in a frenzy of rehearsing, we have a final long tech rehearsal. That's when we incorporate all of Patrick's sound, light cues, music cues. Here's an example. I must have listened to the gunshot about 50 times, with him at late at night without the actors there, because it happened. And then it was so interesting about theater or art. It's like he said, but this tinny sound is actually what a real gunshot sounds like, right? He had several samples. He said, yeah, but dramatically and emotionally, it doesn't grab you in the solar plexus. So we have a gunshot that technically isn't exactly right gunshot, but it's emotionally right. So sometimes you have to fudge reality for the stage. So finally, we have previews, and we finally have the show. I just wanted to wrap up and say All My Sons was so well received. We were so grateful to everybody who came. And for the dessert, I guess I'd have to say for me is watching the audience, who I watched more than the players because they were fine. I'd see people intently, and I often notice, okay, I'm going to give it 12 to 13 minutes before this plot kicks in with these people. The fidgeting stops. The people lean forward. What do you mean it's cracks on their heads? And from there, what do you mean Larry's dead? Right about it. So you have every theater, every play, at first the audience is not engaged. You're like, that girl's kind of gawky, or I saw that guy in Dylan's Disciple. They're out of the play. But they start to get sucked in, and hopefully you'll stay sucked in to the end. So that's the dessert for me. We'd love your participation. It's the usual, I'm sure, with all the committees, all 8 people do all the work, which is true in all endeavors, right? But if we could have more than 8 people helping with graphic design, props are just huge. Backstage publicity, and also the receptions, and it's usually the 3 of us frantically racing around with our heads cut off, and Ellie and Lydia, and P1 Mark Spire, wonderful people, but we love more people. And lastly, I want to say, I know we have a meeting later about, board stuff and elections, but we really try to keep the players totally neutral and non-political for many reasons, but I want everybody to feel totally welcome. We never discuss any of that. It's actually, of all the groups, I think the most bohemianly fun place. There's always wine at the end. And like an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, Alcoholics Anonymous, in case those who don't know about it, have long had a credo: make no stand on anything except this issue, because otherwise they were afraid. Let's say you're in the East Side, you really want to go to a meeting. Oh, it's a Republican meeting. They're going to take one look at me and I won't be welcome. Or is the Village, it's going to be a gay scene and I won't fit in. None of that. Everybody fits in at the Players because it's wonderful theater, oddballs. So we want you all to be there. And lastly, any questions about how to get involved or any procedure? John?
Just wondering, there are some very emotional scenes in All My Sons, more so than many of the other plays. And how do you get, maybe it's up to the actor and the director can't help, but how do you get them to tap into that all the time, on cue, in rehearsal, in the performance?
Good point, good point. I think one, you do trust your actors, and they're very intelligent. They know, I think most good actors know they have to be at a certain emotional level, otherwise the play will start to sputter out. And these are huge issues. And I started to think they're not really unbelievable. I kept thinking of the Madoff case, and how the son killed himself two years after out of shame.
Yeah.
And I think if you do observe human nature, which most actors are quite good at, they knew what level they had to be at. And actors, I think, use a technique known as if. Now, you haven't stabbed somebody per se, hopefully. You haven't, tried to smother a baby, but it's an as if you get yourself in the ballpark. And of course, we give notes. We did have a few issues that 1 or 2 actors I thought were playing casual, and I was afraid the audience would later think they're a psychopath. Because the cover was so good. they'll know right away I'm covering up the scandal if I give one clue. Has to be no clue. So we had a debate about that. But in general, most actors, I think, know how high they have to get to, and they prepare themselves emotionally. They just, it's like a muscle. You get used to it.
I would like to find out how you prepare an actor or actress for speaking a dialect.
Ah, good point. Well, one, there are very technical ways. There are cassette tapes that you listen to. You can either buy them at Drama Bookshop. There are teachers who specialize in it. A lot of actors do that because they have their set script. There's one with Stephen Gaddis. You book him for an hour, like $100, and you he goes over it word by word by word. Other times you can, like, let's say you have to do a Russian accent, you just go to Brighton Beach. You walk around, you hear, the whole time you hear a Russian accent, you start to place voice in the back of the throat. You have the rolling R, and you start to pick up accent, you know. But there are ways you practice it. Topics we didn't cover that you both think, or Ellie think that we didn't cover.
I just remind you while people are thinking again, we have a sign-up list for people who'd like to volunteer in any kind of way. We're Orange Side Garden players that circulated, we came in late or did not get an opportunity to sign up. They're always looking for volunteers to help in many, many, many different ways. So if you did not, there's a sign-up sheet up here.
Oh yes, grant writing. That would be. We heard there are secretly, even openly, grant writing people in the gardens. So we, these benefits we do are hugely fun, but they're unbelievably labor intensive, and we don't make very much money by the time we spend it. So we said there's got to be a better way. And it turns out we're quite eligible for a bunch of grants, but we don't know how to do the form or write the. So any grant writers? Hyla, are you a grant?
That's not why I raised my
Oh,
hand.
but that's a good point.
I'm already wound up in the Robert's rules basket.
Oh, that's okay, good.
What I wanted to ask was biographical to you. When did you become artistic director?
Good point. We did the Heiress. I directed that. I just graduated from Brooklyn College in MFA in directing, and this has been a gift to me. It's like fantastic to get to direct and make a lot of mistakes and learn from them. And so then I think we had a meeting. I remember Cecilia said, "Well, we need more structure because instead of everything was collective, and in art is really not a democracy. It's kind of strange, but there really has to be a benevolent dictator, sort of. I mean, it's kind of funny. You can always kick that benevolent dictator out, but if everything is by group committee decisions all the time and everybody's equal, you tend to get a very mediocre result in art. And other things going on. So this is the idea. Let's propose that you're artistic director and I'm associate artistic. I thought, see, this is a palace scoop. Nobody's going to vote for this. Sure enough, she proposed and everybody goes, fine. Somebody's got to do the work. Yeah, so anyway, that was like 2011.
Thank you.
We did Arms of the Man.
Yeah, that was more collective style. And we still have a collective decision-making process. If most people hate a play we're going to do, proposing, we don't do it. It has to be pretty unanimous. And we're talking about ones now, probably a comedy in the fall. Yeah.
Has the Morningside players been written up or publicized in publications that reach people on the west side? I mean, it's Columbia
Just
Spectator.
this
for
one, yeah, this
I'm
one,
wondering-
but unfortunately, Morningside Heights Live folded a few months after this. It folded, so, no, that's another thing. We're actually the world's best kept secret, and that was the byline of this article. Well, that's where with this huge publicity gap, we actually, if you saw All My Sons, the woman who played Sue, the neighbor, she was very sad, and she said, wait a minute, I'm texting and twittering to 20 critics I know to come up here, and of course none of them came because they're not used to it, and also with the revival they don't tend to come. But there are ways to reach these people, but we're not focused on it enough, and haven't done that.
You win an award.
Nominated.
Oh yes, we're
Nominated.
nominated for an Odelco, and I hear we will be nominated for another one for the Old Set. And that will be in November. Yeah, that gives good publicity, but it's a good point, we don't really have outside coverage.
Got it, folks?
Thank you so much for your There's everybody go to the next play
Oh yes,
and
it's
reading
great,
and
and
so
come to
on.
this, it'll be a lot of fun.
And again, I just remind people that if you did not On your way out, there's a reading that you might learn more about the Orange Garden players. There are plenty of copies over there if you want to pick them up later on. And while we get set up here for Larry to come up here, let me just again remind people, if you did not get a flash report, there are plenty of them on the front here. People like anybody need one of these? But our content is largely based on what you had in the flash report.
Okay, great.
Don't worry about it. Again, if people want to get a drink, there's wine down there, there's water down there, there are other juices down there, a little popcorn. Just take a little spot, like take a stretch now, get yourselves ready for our great discussion here. We got Larry. Little snort. Snort.
I didn't think he was alone in here.
So I give people a minute or so and get a drink if you'd like. Some people will just take a second here and take a little break.
So what it's like, the nitty gritty of television. A lot of grit. Is that very
Okay, folks, I need to bring us back to order like good. Again, people can maybe grab a seat and get Larry come up front here. And again, this is it's a hard act to follow, Larry, but here you are, you're on stage. Again, what we're doing is going over the flash report. Larry, we're lucky to have Larry here. He was just elected for a second term as MHC president. Third, I'm sorry. Do better. And you know, what I want to suggest maybe a way to go at it, I don't know how if you thought about how to present it, maybe to talk about the first 7 items on the flash report, and then maybe look at the last thing kind of separately rather than get them all mixed up. You don't think so? You gonna do it? So again, Larry's on.
Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure being here, first time of this board year. And the important items, the first one is the in item number 6, the management report. The board passed a motion to spend.
Irwin, quiet.
Okay, the board passed a motion to spend not to exceed $39,000 to restore the wall on the south side of Building 6 that was destroyed over time and over local law 11 because the wood rotted, and it's going to be replaced with stone, similar to what's out here, the cinder block. It's going to look like that. So that's the first thing. The other thing is we renewed the insurance, which was very important. They voted to renew it. I had already signed the contract, but we could have changed it if they didn't want it. We saved money on the garage keeper. We got a reduction. Journal liability, we got a reduction of a couple of $100 or so. So that was kind of straightforward. Then the interior bicycle room, which is the big issue here. We believe we're going to be able to store approximately 100 more bikes in the bike room because of the fact that we have now had people sign contracts, they have their spaces designated, and we pulled out all the bikes that nobody claimed. We pulled dozens of bikes, dozens, enough to open up about 100 spots. So we expect to knock that list right down to as low as it can go, waiting to hear the end of it. Tomorrow they should be reaching out to the people to see who wants to get a bike park, an indoor bike park spot, okay? The other issue was that the board agreed to spend money to restore the grounds around Building 3 and Building 2, this area, Building 2, the back area here. And only one board member abstained, which is a negative vote against this, which I can't understand, but it's about $35,000 to do this area. You'll know who it is when you read the minutes. Now, the Andy Ackerman, the day before the packet went out, that's Thursday morning, he sent an email into Donna and asked for the motion to be put on the agenda. And the motion was the board voted that the bylaws advisory committee shall develop a proposal to amend the bylaws requiring an independent third-party election organization to conduct the counting of ballots and certification of shareholder-wide elections. This was passed unanimously. Now, after that happened, well, actually during it, when the motion was made, a board member raised his hand and asked to amend the motion. And he began to read a motion that was not an amendment, but a substitute. That is not permitted. We have to divest ourselves of the original motion, and I, as a courtesy to this board member who gave the board no warning before, I allowed him to read the motion after. When he read the motion, which is not in this packet, and there's a reason for it, it was never passed to our recorder, Etta, the woman that sits to my left. She takes all the minutes. It was never passed to her. We didn't have it to put in here, but it will be in the minutes of the board meeting that will be coming out right after the next board meeting when we ratify them. Anyway, that motion asked the board to make a committee, and the board can't do that. Only the president can do that. I ruled it out of order, and then we began a discussion. Now, there's a videotape of this meeting. At 54 minutes into the discussion, I am answering whatever question is out there. And at the 59th minute, one of the board members explodes and starts yelling at me. This caused at least 2 participants in the audience to get very upset. Not because he's yelling at me, but because I was responding to him. This is a terrible thing. So it got so bad, and at that moment too, that board member mentioned that an inspector who took an oath of secrecy that would never leave this room, whatever happened, he divulged that inspector had divulged information, right or wrong what the information was, accurate or inaccurate, to him. And I said, you realize what you're doing. You're doing this, right? And it just went on from there, and these 2 people got very excited. It was very loud, and then I had to clear the room. So the motion was never acted on. It was ruled out of order, and you'll see what it was. It says in plain face. The real issue here that everyone should bear in mind is that the board voted to change the way we do business here. We're not going to tolerate this kind of foul-up. This is the most egregious foul-up. There's been dozens of foul-ups. No matter what anybody tells you, this goes back years. It just was waiting for this moment to explode. This is not a conspiracy. This is not some sort of fraud. This is just a plain, ordinary screw-up that happens to be a big screw-up because the person who was the 5th person to get a 287 wound up being tied to the 6th person who was 1 vote away at the time, but then wound up being a 287. And then on the recount, the 286 person, the next person down, which was the 7th person down, became 287 as well. So you had a 3-way tie. Over the course of a few days from the moment that count took place, the 287s, 2 of the 287s dropped out. One almost a day after, and the second one dropped out on the Friday of, I think it was Memorial Day weekend, I think is where we are at that point. So they dropped out, and I had just given the direction to purchase the envelopes for a new election, you know, a runoff election. So I had to call back, I had to cancel the envelopes, and now there are all the members that have been admitted to the board, have been admitted to the board. The real issue here is that it does not matter to anybody what happened in the past. There is nothing to correct, there is nothing to find out. The count was done correctly, whether anybody agrees or disagrees, it came out the right way because there's a person on the board who's the 5th person. What's really important is that the board is going to go forward and change the way this is done. And you will vote on this. This has to be a bylaw change. This is not something that the board can go in, sit down here, and change. Now, the problem is that yesterday morning, late last night, this morning, 4 board members put a letter out to everybody in this room. I believe you all have a copy of that letter. Now, in my time here, I have never seen that happen before, because board business is board business. But if you're campaigning for an election that has yet to take place, I guess it's appropriate to start campaigning now. So we have a piece of paper out there that mischaracterized whatever the discussion was in the boardroom after we vacated the room. And we have a mischaracterization of who was civil and who wasn't civil. But we do have a videotape of who was civil and who wasn't civil. So the important thing here is that I want to assure you that in the next few months, I believe you will see things happening that you'll know about. This will be done in open session. We do not do things in closed session like this. There'll be reports, and when it comes time, there'll be public meetings, town hall meetings, and we will discuss everything that will be coming before you that you will have to vote on. And remember, the number 1 item that was supposed to be voted on this year is the change to open market, which requires a vote on the bylaws and the proprietary lease. That's the number 1 item. The second item is the right of first refusal. That's the second item, and it's a way connected to open market, but it's not one. We don't believe that the attorney is going to say that this has to be voted on as a yes or no with the first 2. The first 2 have to be voted together because you have to change both to make it happen. This one will stand alone, and the third one, we'll see what happens, but we think that maybe the bylaws, the advisory committee can get this thing together, but they have 2 months to see where that is. And if we can get that on the agenda too, that will be done. Otherwise, that will have to wait, because remember, everybody in this room, everyone that serves on a committee has another life, a personal life, a business life. So people do a lot of work. And sometimes things take a little longer than you want them to. I'd like it to happen much faster, but who am I? So that's where we are. Yes, please. I'm sorry, your name I don't know.
Yeah, sorry, what is the right of first refusal? I don't know what you're talking about.
Cecilia.
Cecilia is my name.
Cecilia, okay,
But I
thank
don't know
you,
what that
thank you.
is.
Let's say we go to open market.
Right.
Let's say we approve this, which God hope I do, because I'm tired of cutting down orange trees to make that list that's worthless. So we go to open market, and Cecilia, you decide to sell your apartment for an undervalued price, right? We know that you have. No. Let's say.
Why would you do that? Because she's
We have that
desperate
in
for
writing.
some
No, because she has. Don't laugh about this, but this really almost happened. A neighbor on one side of the hall wanted to sell to the neighbor on the other side of the hall, who was in a much smaller apartment, for a value really much, much less than the apartment was worth. And it was stopped because we went out and got higher bid. I mean, people actually wanted to pay more money for this apartment. But when you're in open market, it's hard to stop it unless you have the right of first refusal. So in the right of first refusal, if you decided that you were gonna sell your apartment that has a new kitchen, a new bathroom, new floors, new, I don't know, molding, the doors, whatever you have, right? Which puts it at the very high end of what the market would want in this area. And you said, I'm not gonna sell it for the price of $700,000. I'm gonna sell it for $250,000.
Because I'm nuts.
No, listen, anything can happen. I'm 68 years old, I'm getting older, I can make mistakes too, you know what I mean? So, now the board says, wait a minute, we don't want you selling it at that price. We'll buy it at that price. We'll take it off your hands right now at that price. We have the right to first refusal. And therefore, we take it, we'll take it off at low price. We'll buy it at the low price. We don't want it to go out in the world.
Then you can sell it at a high price.
That's right.
Would you try to convince her that she's making a mistake first?
I'm sure we would have tried, but let Yvonne,
Well, I just wanted to say, I mean, there are a number of other scenarios, not too many, because you could have one where somebody defaults on their mortgage and the bank takes it over and they will sell it for a song. But anytime the apartments are sold at that price, that affects the value of everybody's apartment. And so, and of this whole community. And so that's another reason. I mean, I think it would almost never happen, but it's something that council has advised that it should be in the bylaws to enact if necessary.
I just didn't understand the first refusal
Yeah.
is on the part of the board. They get to.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Well, a low
It's-
price would drive the community on one of the goals of open market, or market price, of the flip tax.
right.
Yes.
Think of that. You could be losing $50, $100, $200,000 to the community. So the low price safeguard that the board can come in and take care of it.
Right.
Oh, I want to switch gears here for a moment. I came out tonight because I'm concerned about a number of issues that I want to address to President. One is Norma Ramos, good from Building 4. One is the election. Now, my husband and I were on our way out of the country, and we made a point of giving in our proxies so that we could make sure our vote is counted. I have serious concerns now. I'm wondering, was my vote counted? I don't understand as an attorney how an election can be certified, and then days later, we learn as a community that there are different numbers coming in, and the whole process was questioned. In view of that scenario, I want to say that in all my years of living here, that has really been more concerning than so much that has happened here. So that's number one. I want to see a serious process in place on this board to ensure that all future elections are handled in a way that this community can have confidence in it. The second thing I want to bring up is I live in Building 4, which has been the center of we get a lot of the problems, the garbage. We seem to be the building of choice for all the negative environmental uses. And yet, I wonder what the process is to get somebody on the System and Structures Committee and on the Long Range Planning Committee when we have a very active member in a tenant in our building, Robert Farouche, who wants to be on those committees. And many of us are wondering, are the old politics that have characterized what is going on in this community, are they still rearing their heads so that we would keep someone who has a lot of positive thinking to contribute to those process? Why isn't he on the System and Structure? Why isn't anyone for Building 4 on those committees? So I want to say that what I'm hoping will happen is that there will be some leadership here that is principled and will actually be different characteristically from what has gone on here. So that there will be an inclusion of the newly elected people in every way possible to show good faith and to build confidence in this community. Because board business, are you looking at me?
I'm listening to you.
Board
Let
business,
me say one thing real quick.
board
Chair, let me
business
just for a
is
second,
community
interrupt you for a
business.
second.
It's
Yeah,
community.
we have to set some limits on how long, great, you make a statement, that's fine. So let's say 3 minutes and try to keep your 1 or 2 questions so you can actually answer them. And this way, other people, everybody else will have an opportunity to also ask questions as well. So 3 minutes would be our limit for folks.
Here, here.
Okay?
Board business is our business, is the note I'm gonna end on.
Okay, so in terms of members on the Assistance Instruction Committee, there are 2 from Building 4. There's James Campbell and there's Dana Hall. So there are 2. She may want a 3rd, but that isn't gonna happen, I don't think. So there are 2. Now, in terms of the vote, she didn't ask the question, she made a statement, but I will answer a question that may be in the air. On Thursday morning, the election committee came to the office, spent a long time. I wasn't there, I had nothing to do with this stuff. They came to some sort of decision and they prepared the boards. The boards went up. Now, that morning, there were 3 ballots in contention. 3 ballots that had to be explained away. And the attorney for the corporation, who represents us, wrote to the chair of the elections committee and said, the first one is an overseas ballot that was mailed. Had a good postmark, but it came late, it cannot be counted. No problem. The second one is a fax proxy. Under New York State Business Corporation law, the ballot is a valid proxy, must be counted. The third one must be counted if it will affect the outcome of the election because they did not know who signed the proxy. It said JTS, but they didn't know who signed it. Now, I'll explain this in a second. These 3 ballots were open. They were sent to the attorney. They had to be open because he had to see the proxy and the ballot. Okay. They had, based on what I'm telling you, they should have counted, as far as I know, the one that was faxed, not counted the one from overseas, and they should have counted the one that was the proxy from JTS. Because according to his directions, if it would have an effect on the count, it needed to be counted. Now, how do you know it has an effect on a count? When you have a 286 to a 287, that's a 1-vote margin. You have to count it. Now, okay, now what happened? For whatever reason, from what I could put together, because it's like a piece of detective work, the committee asked the office, who is this person? You say, we have no idea. There's no signature on file, says JTS.
Who is one person? JTS.
JTS person. Who signed this proxy? Nobody knows. Okay. Now, they put up the boards. I go into to my office, and I said, what happened? What took so long? They said, well, I was told, well, not by them, because they were gone. This is the issue, these 3 things. I said, get the attorney on the phone. I have to speak to the attorney, because I think something happened here. I said, look, I understand the first rule, I have no problem. I understand the second. But the third one, they didn't count it. From what I can ascertain, they did not count the third one. Does it have an effect on the count? He said it does absolutely affect the count. It must be counted. I said, you're going to have to write to the election committee. Wrote to the election committee. Election committee comes in, they decide the count has to come down. Now, no ballot box was open. No recounting took place. None of that. 2 people from the election committee come, they look at the ballot, they take the sheet that they had, and they add the votes to the people that have, to have the votes. The next day, they do the new boards, up go the boards. Now, instead of having a winner in the 5th slot, you now have a tie in the 5th slot. So now you have to have a recount before you even go to the runoff, because the runoff costs us money. It's not millions, but it costs us money. Okay, so if it were you, if it was your ballot that was in doubt, that would have been a bad thing not to count it, especially if it would have affected the election. And believe me, over the course of time, there were ballots that weren't counted. I've heard horror stories about ballots. But here's the thing. We found out who this guy was in 2 minutes. Because while I'm calling up JTS, our attorney's online looking up JTS. I get the administrative assistant to the chancellor. I said, I'm so-and-so, I represent the corporation, there's a proxy ballot here, it says this man's name, could you tell me if he has the authority to sign? She said, oh, that man? Oh, he's the chief operating officer of JTS and the vice chancellor. As I'm saying that, because on the phone is our attorney, I'm online. It says exactly that. That ballot is a legitimate ballot. He has the authority to sign the ballot. So it was counted. And the numbers were changed. That's as simple as that.
Back over here.
Diana Moltere. I think basically what has just been described underscores to me the importance of having a third party.
I agree. The board agrees. We're going to do it.
Good.
Nobody's arguing.
Oh, no.
I said the letter you received today was a misrepresentation of the information. But, you know, I guess that letter sticks in people's heads. The point is, the board unanimously vote, and we are working toward that as
Good.
quickly as humanly possible.
Bravo.
Remember, they're shareholder. Everyone here is a shareholder. Everyone takes on a committee assignment, they're still shareholders. They have families, they have responsibilities, they have to make money, they have to eat, and then they have to run a committee. And they might be on 2, 3 committees, and they actually attend the meetings, which is even more amazing. Because there are people here who are on the committees who attend no meetings, or maybe once or twice a year attend the meeting.
Well, I just have one comment that I would make on that, and that is that we're lucky to live in a place where it's not the board who makes all the decisions. In fact, if you're going to change the bylaws and change the election process, all of us get an opportunity to vote on it.
Absolutely.
And we will decide.
That's right.
Nobody will do it without our approval, and that's the process. We're lucky to have that here. Many co-ops do not have that.
That's true.
Agreed, I agree with that. However, I also agree with what you said, but my understanding, because I'm sorry, I did take that letter that I read very seriously, is I'm wondering what was in that letter that you think was a misrepresentation, because actually it's exactly similar to what I heard many people here saying during the course of what we all perceive to be an election that had significant issues that questioned, or at least our perception was that it questioned the legitimacy of how the whole thing happened. And whether or not, and I agree with you, I don't think there was any conspiracy, but whether or not all of the mistakes were made, you know, in good faith, the perception is that the election was kind of screwed up and that people really questioned whether their vote counted. So, why, I think that that letter reflected exactly what everybody was saying. So what in it was wrong?
I think I pretty much stated what was wrong at the beginning of my conversation.
I didn't
I'm not
hear that.
repeating it, I'm very sorry.
Could you repeat it?
No.
So you're not
Yes,
gonna, you're
Are
gonna
you-
just
are
say
you
that
saying-
the letter was wrong, but you're not gonna tell us
I
what you
said
mean?
why it was wrong.
Are you restating
You
my
always say that.
understanding?
That's perfectly okay.
I
Go ahead.
am, my understanding that the board is considering hiring a third
No,
person, third.
we're not considering anything. We're considering changing the bylaw so that it will be permissible to hire a third party to conduct the entire election from there's 2 parts to an election. Let's go over this. Let's everybody understand what we have here. We have 2 parts to an election. We have the part where candidates have to do a petition, that's the election committee. We have a part where the candidates must go to a meeting and speak to the shareholders, right? Okay, that's a piece. That I don't think will change. And maybe for a clarification, like for instance, the sign sheet, the petition sheet, the nominating petition sheet is a terrible sheet. You know why it's a terrible sheet? It doesn't have a signature and printed name. It doesn't. You have to decipher whatever you're reading. Okay. So leaving that alone, the part we're speaking about that probably will change, and I believe, and I'm almost certain this will change, is the part from the time the proxies are created, printed, stuffed in an envelope, mailed to the shareholders, they come back not to here, we're at it. It goes to whoever the party is, they collect all the ballots, they ascertain whether or not the signatures are correct on the proxy, and then after that, they open the proxies if they're valid proxies, they open the box, they count the votes, and then they determine who wins and who loses. And they certify the results.
All right, Larry, would that be like, for example, we had in 206 about a resale price, an honest ballot association, for example?
Yeah, that's one. There's True Ballot, there's Honest Ballot, there's American Arbitration. We can go out and get bids on this stuff. We can RFP this and say, look, this is what we want you to do, how much will this cost, and they'll come back and give us a
I'm
price.
concerned about the cost of that But
At
that's
this
the-
point, the cost is so irrelevant to what it means to this community
Okay.
that I don't even, it doesn't matter. You know what'll happen? I'll tell you something about the cost. Just let me tell you.
Go ahead.
If this passes, when we make a budget, we say, okay, there'll be a budget line called election. And that will be the cost of what we believe will be the price for hiring an outside agency. There'll be an actual line that says that.
Okay. Now,
Yeah, let other people-
no, this is contingent.
Yeah, but you gotta wait, other people are also waiting here. She's had her hand up.
Very
I am
short.
waiting.
Come on.
No,
Thank you.
you're not letting me finish the second part of the question. This is but,
It's not fair to other people.
You go back and forth.
then call on me again.
I will call the other people speak first.
I don't think it's not going to do it. I think you just must give everybody a chance.
Am I able to make a statement in regard?
Yes, 3 minutes.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that I was at the board meeting and saw how things played out in regard to misrepresentations in the letter that was sent out by 4 board members. There's absolutely something that's missing in that letter. And it has to do with when the president cleared the room. One of the people who signed the letter had begun talking about how he had spoken with an inspector who was handling the elections, and that the inspector had given him certain information, which he said to the board. He told the information. And at that point, the president said, do you understand what you're saying? The inspector's taken oath of confidentiality. Do you understand what you're saying? That was the point at which the president cleared the room. I'm also an attorney, and I do a lot of work in the judiciary area. So, given that board members, excuse me, I have a tremor, so sometimes especially if, okay. Given that the board members have a fiduciary responsibility, and in the law, there's a very famous case by a very famous Judge Cardozo, where the judge says that a fiduciary has the obligation of honesty most pure, of punctilio, I had never heard that word before, but of honesty most pure. So here we have 4 board members sending out a letter that, from my point of view, has certain misrepresentations in it. Board members who are fiduciaries, whose loyalty, the highest degree of loyalty, is to the entity for which they serve, the corporation. I don't see that this letter furthers the interests of the corporation. I really don't. That, coupled with the misrepresentations in it, I was present. I heard everything that went on. I question that type of behavior. That's all I got to say.
I think Yvonne, if you have
Legal.
I think quick things. One is the level of passion in this room needs to go down. And that includes the speaker. Everybody needs to get slightly less passionate for this to go forward in a successful manner. MGCA is famous for its passion. It does not necessarily produce more light, it produces more heat. Now, the other thing I wanted to say, and this is in support of something you said earlier, but I think it then got covered over, and it often does. The board will not decide certain things. It will decide to help its advisory committee, which is only a helper committee now, to bring certain issues to the vote of the shareholders. So, to cut to the chase, only the shareholders by vote, with a quorum, will be able to decide that our elections process should be changed. The board will attempt to set that process in motion. It cannot determine the outcome. Only the quorum, a majority of the quorum, can decide that issue.
And by the way, if the vote occurs all at the same time, before anybody else speaks, I just want to explain to you. If the change takes place and we can make it happen at the same time as the open market vote, the open market vote is the one that requires the supermajority. 51% of all voters. The other issue only requires 51% of those voting. The change in the bylaw, there's two different types of changes going on. Our goal, no matter what, is to get the supermajority for the change in the open market. So who do you want to go to next?
People have to vote first, so they're go ahead.
Okay, I'm Audrey Wilson, Building 5. I would like to understand, I can understand that there was a problem with the ballots, but what I can't understand is why were the votes published until that problem was solved?
Okay.
If there were 3 ballots in question, we have 3 different counts. I'm glad there wasn't any more. We would have had a 4th count.
From what I understand,
I was there when they took the first one down.
from what I understand, this is what I understand. The first 2 proxies I told you about, the fax proxy and the mail proxy, no problem. They were taken care of in the original count. It's the 3rd one that they did not deal with before the boards went up. That's when I discovered it after the boards went up, when I went to find out. First of all, I was fascinated by the amount of time it took. Since I know they finished at 1:30 the night before, and they started at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it wasn't put up until after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I said, what happened? And then I was told about this 3rd ballot that had not been counted. The proxy had not been counted. It was opened, but not counted, because they could not identify the signer. Well,
They shouldn't have published the results.
I agree, but it was done. I have no control over how they operate. I only could go to the attorney and say, look, this is what you wrote. This is what we have. My understanding this didn't happen. I think you have to speak to the chair of the committee. I didn't speak to the chair of the committee directly. The attorney did, because I'm not supposed to do that. I only worry that everybody's vote can be counted. That's all I care about. I think you said this young lady, right?
Sarah, and, okay, I got it, John, 1, 2, 3, okay?
Yeah, in listening to this, I still am left perplexed over like how an election gets certified and then it gets taken down. And one way of trying to move forward on it and not rehashing it forever, it seems like there've been recommendations that there be a committee that includes prior chairs of the election committee to look at this election and include the current election committee in that, and to make recommendations as to what were the problems and how best to move
Okay,
forward.
so-
My understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, that that idea was somehow vetoed at the board and only the current election committee would look at the election,
No.
which doesn't make much sense.
No,
to me.
you see, that was never said in terms of it's going to absolutely happen that way.
So-
What was said is what the board approved, which is that we're going to go to a change in the bylaw. What you're saying is you want to have a committee to find out who did what wrong.
Yes. Well, make
That's what you really,
recommendations.
no, there's no recommendations.
No,
You know
I'm
what?
suggesting.
No,
that
but you know
there-
why there doesn't need to be recommendations?
That's what I'm-
Because after we change the bylaw, everything is new. We don't need a recommendation. Because I have to tell you, my understanding is they have been changing their rules on a regular basis. Every year they do it. They make a new sheet of paper to stick in a folder. They have a folder filled with loose papers. I don't know who reads it, I don't know what they follow, and I don't even care that they do it. The only thing I care is that on my watch, this is the most screwed up election in the history of the corporation. And I am embarrassed that it's on my watch. Believe me, I'm embarrassed. But my point is, it doesn't matter what happened because they can't offer any solution. The only solution is to go to a third party. Because if you're looking to solve the problem, then you don't need a third party and you don't need a bylaw change. And I'm telling you, in this community right now, you want to change. You want to put an end to this. You can't have this. We can't have this kind of fighting. It can't go on.
Okay, let me see, we got 5 more minutes on this. We got other agenda items we need to move on to.
Only
So let,
people who haven't spoken
people who have not
first.
spoken will come back. Don had and Gabe back in the back, these two, so 5 minutes we got.
My question is just a little different from what we've just been saying.
Sure. Done, right?
Doc, what is the relationship or the given of a co-op and open market? Can a co-op be open market?
Do you know almost every co-op in New York City now is open market?
Right.
Thank you, that answers my
Yeah.
question.
Gabe?
This is just quickly, since I'm Gabe, I was elected to the board, my name was on the letter that went out. I'm just gonna say briefly, it is important to get information out to people, when you think it's necessary. We, in terms of the information that we put out in the letter, it was an open session item. I don't think that the information that we published was something, that was that sensitive, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you one of the reasons why we published it. It's news to me, by the way, that this third party, this bylaws change for third party county would actually end up in November. My understanding, from my perspective during the meeting, and this is during or after we went to close, was that we wouldn't be able to get this bylaw change for the elections on the November vote. So it was my concern that if we were gonna have a realistic schedule for getting this bylaw change ready in time for the next election, that if it wasn't before November and it was sometime afterward, that maybe we didn't have a realistic schedule, because to have the voting in February seemed a little too close to the actual general election. So it's news to me that it's gonna be in November, or that it might be in November, and I'd be very happy to hear that. I think, just as a shareholder and a board member, information needs to pass to people, it needs to pass to shareholders. Yes, it is shareholders who are ultimately the ones that change the bylaws, but the shareholders aren't the ones who are gonna decide the schedule of when the bylaw is gonna be. And how will they know what the schedule is if no one tells them? Or how will they know if someone doesn't want the schedule to be the schedule that might be realistic for change? So I'm happy that the letter was posted, because it sounds like to me we're moving in the direction of having the bylaws change when the two other bylaws changes that are gonna happen in November for open market.
May I respond?
So we got a question right here. You
May I
Yvonne wants to
respond to
answer
that?
for me.
Okay.
No,
Board member
I
then.
just want to clarify, because there was something in the letter regarding what the chair said, but it was only a portion of what the chair said. What I had said is that in late October, I think it is, or early November, we're going to have this vote for open market and for the right of first refusal. These two items require an affirmative vote of 51% of all shareholders entitled to vote. Now, that's not the only, so I said that this other vote, which only needs 51% of the quorum, could be separated for a number of reasons. First of all, you're going to have a lot to read. You have to read, you're going to get two sets of the bylaws. You're going to get a red line copy, which means everything struck through and with the new language. Then you will get a clean copy so that you can read it clearly. For those, a lot of people have trouble reading one or the other, or if you just get a clean one, you don't know what's changed, okay? In addition to that, you have to vote, you also have to read the proprietary lease, okay? So we've done this before. It's a lot of reading. The last time we did it, we coupled it with other items that didn't require the 51% affirmative vote of all shareholders entitled to vote. And so months and months and months ago, the board and the Bylaws Advisory Committee had this conversation. We had this conversation with the shareholders at the town hall meetings. And what we understood is that people don't want, from the feedback we got from the town hall meetings, is that people want open market to be voted alone. They don't want anything else attached to it. They don't want anything that would seem like it's hidden. And so that's why when I did speak at the board meeting, and it was not reported in that letter what I said, this is what I said. And I also said that I am sure that the Bylaws Advisory Committee, once we get a complete handle, which will be very soon, on these documents that we have been working through, and these are 5 dedicated people who come to meetings in spite, as Larry said, we all work, we have families, we have other things to do, and we come, and we work for hours, we work with council, we go back home, we read the things, we communicate by email, then we get together again. It's a lot of work. This is not an easy task. It's gotta be done right. What I did say at the meeting, which nobody who signed that letter said, was that I was sure that we could have the vote, if we separate it from the open market vote, it could be done in January. By the time, I said not in December, because people go away. People are involved in holidays, holiday festivities, and they take vacations, but we could schedule it to be in January. And not only that, people would know, because you have to know. If you read our bylaw, it says that we must have a town hall meeting to present any proposed bylaws changes. So there's nothing stealth that would be done here. Everything has to be out in the open. Although we already had town hall meetings, and we went back after we had the town hall meetings on open market, and we revised what we did according to what we heard, and the board agreed that our changes were the right changes to do. But we're going to have town hall meetings again, because that's the right thing to do. Technically, we don't have to have it. We're going to have it.
Okay,
So
thank you very
that's the
much.
point.
Eleanor?
November or January, you all decide. It's not my decision, or maybe the board's.
Other people have to speak.
Eleanor?
Eleanor, right? Hello, Eleanor.
I'm not a lawyer.
I'm happy to hear that, because neither am I.
I'm a psychotherapist.
that's
We're losing up things.
It's okay, I'm just confused. What I'm listening to tonight, and I've spoken to you before, and I have trouble with all the aggression that goes on. But what I'm hearing is
Louder.
that it's like a
Can't hear you.
dysfunctional family with two parents who can't talk to each other. I think that we should get an outside consultant to sit with the board and help you play nice. You're all very fine, intelligent people. I have said about you, even though your attitude sometimes gets to me, I've said about you, with that guy's passion, I want him to be in charge of where I live.
May I answer that question? I want you to know, it's a statement, I just want you to know. You would think that from this one incident, the board doesn't function. The board is brilliant at its function. It actually has, over the last year, we've passed many motions to make this place better.
Let me try to wrap up, folks. We really are, our time is running out. There's a question, nobody's, I've not answered a question, I asked a question, I'm sorry.
It's not a question, can I say something?
Well, again, 3 minutes, and this is kind of.
Okay, my name is Maggie. I don't come to this meeting, I don't go to the board meetings. Every now and then I like to show up and say I represent the silent majority. Because there's a lot of fighting that goes on, but mainly people just live here. I am extremely grateful for every person who's on a committee and does the work. I'm very, really, even if I find people annoying, I do want to say that when that flyer came under my door, my heart sank. It just sank. I was like, no, no. And I feel like, I mean, I do have some experience with boards, and my sense is that board stuff stays in the board. And you've got to work through that process. And this is not taking sides, I just really might have to say. Because we've had years where we've got this stuff coming underneath, with people yelling at each other underneath our doors.
Okay, final comments, sir. We're going to take time.
I think we should be very careful not to muddy the waters. I agree with President Giordano and Yvonne.
Excuse me, could we have order?
I agree with President Giordano, Larry, and Yvonne, Kazula, that the honest ballot, if that's the choice, should be instituted or voted on to clear out the Trump. I think the open market resolution should be clear and distinct, and if you muddy the waters, I think we're in trouble. I agree with both of them that the possibility of an honest ballot or whatever should be a separate issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Larry, thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you everybody for
Thank you, everybody.
participating in a civil discussion about our future. Let's take another little break, and actually we want to go over a number of things about MGCA and our future. It'll be short. Well, they just want to go over what we're planning for the next couple of months for Okay, folks, we need to bring everybody back so we can go ahead and conclude our meeting. So people can grab a seat real quick. A lot of you came here, either the players or whatever. Before I call it. Our first order of business is actually to go over our minutes from the last meeting, last May 1st. People who have not seen the minutes, there are copies up here. I just want to quickly go through this. If anybody has any suggestions or corrections to it.
We have order is my suggestion. Thank you.
Are there any corrections to the minutes? They're right here. And all you do is we mailed them out, so there were a couple of changes people suggested, which we put on it. I have a print copy of it. That's all I can do. So these are the current minutes we have. If people have suggestions for any changes on it, we can do that at this moment. If not, I'll just take a voice vote of all the delegates and board chairs, and if so, we'll adopt them. So all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. Raise your hands. Yes. Yes. Anybody opposed? So that's that. The minutes are adopted. And let me just go into actually, what we wanted to go is go over a number of things about MGCA that looking forward. This is my first real meeting as chair. And again, since the last meeting, there are a number of things that have happened in terms of planning for the future. We'd like to go over some of those things. Okay. If I'm too loud, I'm sorry. I'm a school teacher and I have to school and I'm too loud. So again, the first thing as chair that I did was set up a steering committee. And the reason for that is that there's in the bylaws, there's been a place for a steering committee. You go back in the history of MGCA, we used to have a more active steering committee. And really, as one person, it's much better to work with other people to try to be collaborative. Yes, sir.
I'm going to leave, but I want to thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming, all right? But again, trying to lead somebody by yourself is not always the best way, I believe. And so looking for ways to work with other people is something I'm very much in favor of. So again, what the steering committee is the four of us. Actually, Edith is not here. She's with her a sick relative in Puerto Rico, so is not here for that reason. But again, it includes all the four officers and any building chairs, which there are only two at this point. But as other building chairs are kind of elected or reestablished building organizations, that body would be 6 building chairs and the 4 officers, and that would be the steering committee. So that's my goal, is to try to bring that back into functioning. And the other thing is also to try to revive committees. In other words, MGCA used to have a lot more active committee structure where people would break down from, say, this meeting and bring ideas back to this meeting so that people can kind of collectively try to figure out things to do while people meet on the side to kind of go over ideas. Right now there are only 2 functioning committees in MGCA. That's the Employees Holiday Fund, with John Kapler, chairs, and that's been functioning for almost as long as the co-op has been here. And the other is the Emergency Neighborhood Food Program, and Kenneth and Elizabeth Thomas both are chairs of that. Maybe if you could just give us a little brief report, because they just had a fundraising activity, and maybe just Kenneth can give us a little report on kind of how that went.
Thank you. My wife is Peggy.
I'm sorry.
This started in 1981. There was an emergency at that time. We had lots of homeless people on the streets, lots of beggars out there wanting food. There was an economic downturn, and we decided in the MGCA that we needed to collect money to try to help the food programs, the food pantries that were providing for them. Interestingly, the emergency has never gone away. And today, the food stamp program has been cut. 5 of the food programs, food pantries in our neighborhood have been closed. So there are fewer opportunities so people can go to food pantries to get food. So the emergency keeps going on. So we keep collecting the money. We still are still doing this. St. Joseph's over here on the corner have had to increase their area coverage. They're now providing food for people from 100th Street to 135th Street, from Broadway to 8th Avenue, because of the closing of 5 food pantries in the area. St. Mary's actually goes out on the streets every Saturday. They pass out food to 100 homeless people on the streets every Saturday. This is the kind of thing that's going on in our neighborhoods. St. Mary's also has lost their coordinator for their food program, Judy Davis, who died in February. They have a temporary person now who is helping out. But these programs are all operating under great stress and tension to try to meet the needs in our neighborhood. This last time when we raised money, you'll be happy to know that in May, which was primarily for St. Mary's, but checks do come in for the other food programs at the same time. We raised a total of almost $4,000 this time. For the year, for this past year, we have raised $12,000 for primarily 4 food programs in our neighborhood. This is $3,000 more than the year before. Why? One person is now giving $1,000 every time. Wow. That means an increase of $3,000 from this year over last year. All because of one person. Amazing. But the contributions are all important. They range from $5 to $1,000, and with everything in between. Unfortunately, we only have a few people in our co-op who actually give. This last time, we had 57 contributors. 57 out of 1,000 apartments in our co-op. Let me just explain to you a little bit of our procedure of how we operate. We have chosen the food pantries in our neighborhood, and we are always on the lookout if there are other ones that we can be supporting and looking to. But these seem to be the primary ones, in addition to Riverside Church, that have the food programs in our neighborhood which we support. We do a distribution and collection of flyers, and this is all done by volunteers. And sometimes some people say, can we help? Well, we have the list of people who do the contributions, the distributions and the collections. And if you would like to help with the distribution, I'm sure you could contact the person in your building and they would be very happy for you to help them. You should know that John Bordeaux in Building 2 and his children do the distribution. So we actually have children and young people involved in the program. And I think most of these people do not actually give the flyers themselves. They get volunteers to do this. And if you would like to help, that is something that you would do. Then the flyers are paid for by you. The photocopying, MGCA, about $100 every time. This is a part of your budget. And by your doing this, this is the only administrative cost to the whole program. Everything else is done by volunteers. But by your doing this, every dollar that is given goes directly for food, and only for food. It does not go for any administrative cost in these programs. It does not go for any administrative cost on our part here in Morningside Gardens. And finally, the notices that go up just before the end of the time beside the elevators, those are provided by the office of the board, and the porters took those up beside the elevator. So this is a cooperative thing. The board helps, MGCA helps, and the building volunteers and ourselves are all involved in this program. And we want to thank you all for your involvement, for your giving checks, and please get your neighbors to contribute too.
So let me just say one thing to Kenneth.
Sorry, can we get your name so I get it for the rest? It's actually Kenneth Thomas.
So let me just say one thing that I think before you do your next round of fundraising, make sure you come here and again just announce to the rest of us here if any way we can supplement whatever you guys are doing. Just see us as a resource. And I think coming every time you're getting ready to do outreach, just to remind everybody here that they also, like your volunteers, we can help and so maybe certainly call on us.
We do it the 1st of November, the 1st of February, and the 1st of May every year.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you so much then. So let me jump to it again. So those are our two committees that are active. So again, one thing I'm trying to do is get more committees active within MGCA. And some of the most basic, not committees, but building organizations. In other words, throughout the complex, they've kind of fallen down, they've kind of disappeared in so many ways. And so I've called for a meeting on June 19th to bring you people as well as old people together to try to talk about how we can work together collectively to try to revive building organizations. Because really, MGCA is really all about building organizations. That's the foundation of it. It's always been. If we don't have those, our organization is not going to be very strong, not reflect people here in our community. So again, this meeting is going to bring together people who've been active in building organizations and try to bring new people in and talk to them about what questions they might have about how to do things, how much time does it take to do it, so on and so forth. So again, if you know anybody who's interested, again, do encourage them to come. It's 2 weeks from tonight, right here in this same place. The goal would be to try to have as quickly as possible elections. I think 2 buildings are very ready to have elections if they can get enough people together to do it. Both Building 4 and 5 are ready to have elections. Really, 1 and 6 are the ones that there are no real organizations there, and trying to, again, work with people from those buildings especially to try to make sure something happens in the fall. So that's one thing. Again, next 2 weeks from now, come if you'd like to work with that effort in some kind of way. The second thing is I'm going to revive the recycling committee, which is a committee with a long history here at MGCA. And I guess our first thing we want to do is work with the Morningside Gardens Composting Club, which is going to have a celebration. Let me just pass out something here. People, again, you've got the newsletter. Some of this is the same information we got, but there's something in here just on that particular celebration, which is the last Saturday of the month, the 28th, which is the 1-year anniversary of composting. We had somebody here earlier, but she had to leave, and so unfortunately she didn't get to speak. She's from the composting club, but again, she had to leave for a 9 o'clock telephone appointment with her work. So she's not able to speak more about it. I don't know if Liz, if you want to say anything about the composting club, or?
You just want to announce?
Well, all we're really doing, again, the idea is we're having a celebration. You know, again, we've been doing it for a year. There are a lot of things. Our co-op is a model for the city, and it's really something to celebrate what we've accomplished in the last year. And we'll have more information we'll circulate around the complex in the next couple of weeks about it, but it's going to be out here in front of Building 3. We're giving everybody a bag of compost. It's not the compost from our building, but it's compost from New York City. And again, you can put it on your plants, you can put it on gardens, anywhere. And so the idea is really to celebrate that accomplishment here at Morningside Gardens. The date is the 28th. And again, the little packet I passed around has a little flyer in it. And there'll be more flyers passed around in the next several weeks about it. Yes, Joe?
Are you going to be giving out or talking about any of the statistics in terms of?
We are. We will publish it. They've sent us some information about it in terms of how many people they estimate are participating and what's the diversion rate in terms of how much is not going in the trash anymore, instead is going to be recycled. So we'll publish that in the next several days. So that'll be available to people. The next thing we have is one of the things I've done again as chair is try to reach out to 2 big groups here at Morningside Garden. One is MRHS, and the other is the Family Activities Committee. And I had my first meeting today with MRHS, and we're looking for ways to kind of work together to celebrate all these activities within our community. They are planning an ice cream social for August 7th, and we're going to coordinate that together, work with them, volunteer to help do that project. And so that's one thing coming up.
Wait a minute. Who's we?
We, well, as chair, I said we as an organization would like to work with you around the ice cream social.
Has anybody volunteered to do that? I didn't
No,
know.
nobody has volunteered.
Oh, okay, well, so we is you so far. I just wanted to be clear. Do we have a sign up for volunteers?
I do have a sign up, but I can pass it around for people who'd like to be active in this. Again, that's something I'll pass around here in just a moment.
Remember what Susie said. If one person doesn't do it, it doesn't get done. It's you who's doing it. You too.
And the date for that again?
This meeting is like a kick-starting. It's not about excluding people in any way, but to try to get some things underway that we can then all work together, and if things work, they don't work, that's how it's gonna go.
You're the idea person.
Right, and again, this is, again, people, don't wanna do it, that's fine, but again, people who'd like to volunteer and work with MRHS to do this, again, this organization is one that certainly wants to build community, awareness and working with other groups in the community. Again, it was an opportunity to do that, and so I said for our group, probably our group would wanna do it. If you'd like to talk about it or discuss it, that's certainly fine, we could do that.
Excuse me one more time, because I think this is our opportunity. This is a volunteer sign up, but it doesn't, it doesn't ask which event. So presumably, people who are organizing the event will get back to these people. They're only indicating their interest, which doesn't say which event. But for instance, one person said general help and another one said publicity. Well, I don't know whether that's for the Family Activities Committee event or the composting event, or so do we want to have people who are available to help with that event? Maybe put the date of the event. We have August 7th and
There's gonna be a
July.
meeting on the 19th, right?
Any what?
I
Well, the
can-
19th is getting
That's
people,
what you're
the
gonna
19th is
talk
something
about.
you can volunteer for, what I mentioned so far. If you wanna come to that, you can sign this and I'll be in touch with you. The other thing again, I mentioned is the composting is the end of, this month, 28th.
I'm helping you.
And then August 7th is an ice cream social.
The meeting that you're going to have to talk about committees, the volunteers, names of the volunteers will come into that meeting.
Right.
And then you could decide.
Well, that could be
what
anybody who's interested in working on building organizations, and there've been a whole number of people who would like to see buildings,
Well, while we're on that subject, I think there's one error here. Building 5 has made an effort for some 2.5 months to have an election already, and there is nothing planned for later in 2014 at the moment.
any other questions on other buildings? Again, the idea is whether there is to try to encourage in any way we can support buildings to have elections in coming months. Let me just go over the last two things I have here. And again, they're both things that were in the newsletter that was put out, and they're on the back here. One is the idea of a newcomers meeting, which is people who are new here and bought a co-op here, would like to learn more about what does it involve to be a co-op member and so on. And there's been a lot of interest in that group. I've had several board members volunteer to help work with that. MRHS was very interested also in co-sponsoring such a meeting, so that's something over the summer. If people would like to help work on that, again, it's something you could volunteer for. We'll meet over the summer and come back in the fall and hopefully have more of an idea of what to do. Also, we'll reach out to all new people. The office gave me a list of all the new people over the last year. We'll contact them. There's somebody who's volunteered, there's a new person here that just want to co-op, would like to work on that committee. They especially like to ask with people that are new, what do they want to find out about? In other words, we may have our own preconceived ideas of what we need to tell them, but again, what do they need to know? What can we do to help them sort of learn how to live here more productively? So that's again another meeting. Again, October 15th is probably not going to be the day because there's actually a conflict with Jewish holidays, which I'm just learning about. I guess they start 9:30 the night before instead of, I thought it was actually okay that day, the holiday doesn't start till the next day. But it starts, there's a lot of learning now. But I did look it up and it seemed okay to me. It was in between two holidays, but it turns out it starts the night before, so it doesn't work. So we'll change the date and find a date that's suitable for people. It's very flexible, there's nothing more about it. Then the last thing is, again, something that's happened here, and actually I asked Doc to come talk about it. She's the first person I talked to about it. Has helped, house tours is something they've done here a number of times, both MGCA as well. I think MRHS also did one in the past. And it's something that a lot of people I think would like to have. I mean, like to see how other people have renovated their apartments. I think a lot of interest. I had several people already volunteer to show their apartments, as well as people signed up to reserve tickets. So that's something we'll work on over the summer to try to get that in motion. The other thing I'd say about it is that it's also a fundraising activity. In other words, there was a fee that's charged for people going around on the tour, and the one thing we need is to figure out how to make money or have money so that we're able to do things like produce a newsletter, other activities. So this is one possibility of doing that. The other group to reach out to, besides just people who like to see apartments, is contractors, people who want to work here or work here, to hook those two groups up. People who want to see an apartment, may want renovation, to actually hook up with somebody and look at their work as they travel around and see other apartments, and perhaps in some way bring those two groups together so people can talk to people who actually renovate their apartments. So Doc, could you tell us a word about?
Very quickly, and that is, I did it twice, I oversaw that. I found that the feedback was very positive. The people who visited apartments were very positive about what they saw. My observation over the years is that as the price of apartments have increased, there's greater renovation going on than ever. And that I think a lot of people would be interested in seeing what some apartments look like that are in different lines, A, B, C, D, whatever, and say, oh, that's a good idea, and be able to find out, well, who did that for you? You know, or what did it cost, that kind of thing. So I would say it's probably a program that will have a lot of interest.
Yes, a lot.
Okay, I wanted to say for this evening, it's clear that MGCA has proven tonight that it should exist.
Absolutely.
Because we cleared something. The second thing is to ask you if it wouldn't be possible, on account of the raid which took place yesterday, to ask Mr. Vincent to come and talk about it here, to tell us how our community is involved, and I'm sure that many people would be interested.
Yes, good idea.
Excellent. I'll look into that. I'm not sure how, we don't meet again until September, but certainly by September, we can have a special meeting about it. I mean, it actually starts something we can do, and maybe actually the police department, as well as Captain Montalvo to come, to also talk about, like, sort of a forum to hear more about it. We might.
If it's in September, then
Well, maybe we can do it much sooner. I mean, it's no difficulty putting it together. If people have comments or thoughts on it.
Yeah, what about the June 19th meeting that you're gonna have? Is there any way that we could involve Captain Montalvo with that?
It's kind of a whole different thing. I'll look for actually another date and actually do, I think it's something that has enough interest in it, that people would come out just for that, and do it quickly. I mean, not wait, I mean, try to do it as quickly as we can. So we'd have to contact the police department, through Captain Montalvo, might be able to, right?
Yes.
Roll.
As it happens, Captain Montalvo is submitting an article for the Morningside Gardens News.
Oh, great, that's great.
So he'll explain a lot of it in that case. His regular article
Which is coming out.
in, what is it, end of June, July.
So maybe we'll talk, I'll talk to you more about it. Maybe there's a way we could, again, if people want it more quickly, we can do it more quickly. It's not difficult to get this room to have a meeting if they're available to do it. I think there's certainly a lot of interest in finding out more about it and being able to ask questions about it, I think, and so I'll investigate it as quickly as I can and try to do something. Any other thoughts on it? No. On that particular, okay.
It's about other, scheduling, and we're having a party on the 14th. Is there is the executive committee planning, I mean, how is that being organized?
The posters are going up tonight. This is building 3 he's talking about.
Building, I'm sorry, building 3, okay. Okay, my other question, no, there's so many things, events, I can't keep track of it. There was someone, I saw something about, a fair for the morning, for the entire, gardens.
It was a mistake, I think.
It was called a fair.
Right.
Does anyone know anything about that?
It's not gonna happen. It was an idea that floated, that was it.
Okay, so there's no specific.
There's no fair.
I-
Roland, or Mary? Not Mary. Barbara.
We have members from Morningside sitting on the security committee who meet at the precinct on a monthly basis.
I'm sorry.
We have some committee members on security who go to the precinct once a month to meet with the police captain or the inspector. You may wanna contact one of them.
That'd be a good, excellent idea. Yeah, sure, we'll do that.
And also, I was at a senior issues meeting at the library on Tuesday, and I think his name was Stephen Griffin from the 26th precinct, and he also works with closely with Captain Montalvo. So those are some, you might want to discuss that with Captain Montalvo and see if we could have a meeting earlier than September.
Yeah, no, we can do it much quicker than that, certainly. Maybe not quicker than the Morningside Guard News, but sometimes pretty quickly.
Thank you.
Let me do, is there anything else, we have building reports, I don't think there's a lot to, we'll skip that because it's getting so late. Any other comments people would like to make or suggestions about?
Thank you, Skip.
No? If not, we should.
Well, there is a building.
Thank you.
Building Green Party, that's right.
It's open to anyone in Morningside.
Even this
Yeah, Marilyn, I said, why don't you start putting this way? She doesn't. I thought that was
Yeah,